Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of political excitement in the air. But the divisions are very deep. The divisions are very, very deep. The country is very deeply divided. And all this is complicated by the fact that the cost of living has been escalating, has been very high. Poverty has been deepening, and all this on the back of higher expenditure and a bigger budget by the government. So in a sense, you could say there's a disconnect between the common man and the macroeconomic scale, the budgeting, the government expenditure, etc. So all this is really causing a really contentious political and charged political environment. That's a good question. A super alliance, a united opposition, is always something that you cannot ignore. A united opposition is a force to reckon with. What the National Super Alliance have done they have been able to coalesce around Raila as a single candidate to bring parts of the main regions in this country, which is the western part, the eastern part, what they call the Nyanza and the Luo Nyanza part, the south, which is the coast, as well as parts of the Rift Valley. This is going to be a very, very, some will say unbeatable ticket. The numbers are going to be overwhelming, which is why you had the opposition leader talk about 10 million strong. However, historically, Raila is seen as an anti-establishment outside candidate, and so my own assessment is that there's always other forces at play outside of the electorate. I don't know if the current regime would in essence concede defeat. I don't know that answer, because today is Independence Day, and I noticed that Raila did not even get a chance to speak where they had attended the celebrations this morning with the president, and this has also sent a very strong message, So this is what also led to the problem in 2007, and to be frank, also in 2013. So there's some complications around this election, to be honest. I think high voter turnout can help him. I think disillusionment with the government can help him. I think the anger of the masses against the cost of living, against the mismanagement, the misrule, against the grand corruption, because there's been major issues around theft, around grand corruption just in the last 4 years. There are major projects that are going on, big dams, standard gauge railway, the first in more than 110 years, lots of electrification. But around these big pilot projects, there's also a lot of theft. And so there's a lot of anger at the grand corruption, which also contributes to the increase of the gulf between the rich and the poor. So a very small majority getting much more wealthier, and a vast majority, masses, in poverty and also suffering serious unemployment. The economy is very bad. It is indeed very bad. Because the United Front was viable, because of United Front means that victory is actually within striking distance. That's why they sacrifice their ambitions. That is a good question. Indeed, many would argue that numerically it is virtually impossible to defeat this kind of unified opposition. Numerically, it is practically impossible, just purely on the numbers. And so for them, this was worth the try. They tried to force the hand of the government at the ballot and to concede power if at all they lose.
And moving on to Kenyatta himself, we know that he's running for his second and final term. I know, of course, you did mention some of the things that he has done, but can you please just give us, say like, what are some of the notable positive challenges he has done positive changes he has brought to the country in the past 4 years of his.
So in other words, so do you want the achievements or do you want the challenges? What exactly do you want?
Both the achievements and challenges.
Well, it's a mixed bag. You see, Kenyatta succeeded a very organized president that had a blueprint and an agenda and a manifesto that was very, very, very broad. A president that was a trained economist, that was a seasoned government technocrat, so that there were very, very big, ambitious projects that, again, the government inherited. But the Kenyatta government had big problems. You know, they had the international crimes charges, and so they were very distracted. They were not ready. But they found that such things as the rural electrification program, these blueprints had been prepared and were ready. The standard gauge railway, this had been conceptualized and tendered. It was then retendered at a higher amount, which for many analysts meant theft from the project. Huduma Center, which is organization of provision of services to citizens around the country, and the establishment of the first devolution-based system of governance. All these have cost a lot of money. All these have been decent achievements. But again, madam, I'm sure you agree with me that connection of electricity, expansions of the road network, building of a new railway line sometimes doesn't mean much if citizens are unable to buy food. So this is a problem, again, that has dogged this administration and cast a shadow over its ambitious and deliverable-driven, you could argue, agenda. How significant it was last time? It was very significant. It was politicized enough to, again, divide the country and to be a referendum on the sovereignty of the republic. In other words, that the country had suffered internal problems, and now it was, in essence, relinquishing its independence and its sovereignty to the jurisdiction of a different court and of a different authority. And this was politicized to mean that if this was allowed to continue, then Kenyans, in essence, were giving up their independence. And so this is not so much a factor this year. And so I think the factor this year will be corruption and continuation of the path that the Jubilee administration has put the country on, or decisively changing that direction. It is in some ways a very complicated election, because the opposition also have been in power. They're not exactly, by definition, the change candidate. They're not by definition and by construction the change candidate. A lot of them have served, you could argue, in government even many more years than the president and his deputy. And so this really, again, throws a cloud of confusion in the entire matrix. Performance-wise, on a scale of 1 to 10, honestly, at the highest, I'd give him a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10. He is a very personable character, so he plays well in his interpersonal relations. But you see, also, he's a young president, so at 50-something, his performance, should be like Barack Obama, should be sterling, should be wonderful, full of energy, able to handle a whole host of issues at the same time. I mean, just last year, his deputy was 49 years old. And so there's no excuse for this kind of dysfunction, for this kind of confusion in government, for mega corruption, so that's how come I would rate them the most at 4 out of 10, which is at 40%, and a 40% is in essence a D score. His predecessor, 85 years old today, left office at about 81, came into office at 72 years of age, and was able to do all of this stuff. I mean, a sickly president who had an accident, who was basically running the country for some time via remote control, and you shouldn't be able to hold a candle to President Uhuru's, tenure and record now. But the fact that it doesn't even match up to his predecessor, who in essence is his quote-unquote father.
Lost you
Yes,
there.
madam. Yes. Yeah, I actually think that it's timed out. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Anyway, we are about to finish our interview.
No problem.
Yeah. So, and then we also want to look at the rest of the candidates, particularly Ekuru Okot, who is running for the first
Yes.
time, and we also know
Yes.
that we also know about his involvement in the drafting of the 2010
Of the Constitution. Yeah, he's a personal friend of mine.
Oh, really? Okay. So
Yes, so I know him very well.
yes. So what are the chances that these other candidates can also win? People like Dida, Abduba Dida,
Yeah.
and Ekuru.
So Ekuru's campaign has been disappointing. He has not been able to capture the imagination of Kenyans. So just by the way that he's designed his campaign program, just the way he's done his campaign agenda, he has not been able to make a mark at all. He has not been able to garner any momentum. I actually saw him yesterday just driving himself unaccompanied by even one person. Politics is about people. You must persuade people. You must create a following. And Ekuru has not been able to create a following at all. What he had done is to conceptualize that he could create a third force, an alternative between these two candidates. So I think that it is a viable option, yes, but it's the thing with politics. It all lies in the execution. You've got to conceptualize it right. You've got to sell it convincingly, and with time you've got to grow a following. And so Ekuru Aukot, I don't even think he'll manage 1%. Dida is a modern day philosopher. So he is a thinker. He came on the scene the first time 4 years ago in 2013, and he was able to defeat seasoned politicians like the Honorable Peter Kenneth, like the Honorable former Justice Minister Martha Karua, because he says a lot of things that resonate with people. The good thing with the candidature of Abduba Dida, madam, is that we are, at the end of the day, Africans, and we are still progressing. We need to crystallize our politics around ideas, around ideals, that we can really achieve this for our people. We can move our societies from this point to the next. Just like South Africa had a concept that we can really move away from apartheid, that we can really respect everybody's human right and human dignity. This can sound very foreign, and just being pushed by a minority, for example, at the time, Winnie Mandela, Nelson, etc., who are convicts, who are stigmatized. But people like Dida can really move us away from ethnic mobilization, from the politics of the stomach, the politics of deception and tricks, and trickery, to really a society that can conceptualize some ideas and determine its own destiny, its own future, its own self-determination. So that is a good aspect of Abduba Dida's candidature. And sometimes, madam, as you well know, some of these ideals are not really easily within reach or within sight. So if you're talking about the independence of South Africa, for example, in 1980, you sound like a crazy person. But then 10 years later, it happened. If today Abduba Dida is talking about self-determination and the importance for personal responsibility and discipline, people think that he's just making noise. But 30 years from now, it could actually be, which is within my lifetime. So this is the good news about sometimes these very, very, very charged and very, very stressful political events. Most of them are unknown. Cyrus Chirongo is really just doing a business move. he's going to be, because this happens a lot in Kenya, he's probably going to be paid some money to deny some votes, maybe from the opposition side, so he's going to be inconsequential. And some of the other ones who have been cleared are actually unknowns. There's a guy there, some of them are just unknowns. They're not going to they shouldn't really even be on the debate stage. So this also raises questions around the process of, verifying and validating presidential candidates, because you just don't want any noisemaker who is a citizen to take advantage of the Constitution and just say, look, I just want to get my 15 minutes of fame, I want to get some publicity, so I'm going to run for president. Or Joe Nyaga is the other one, a former cooperative minister. He is also not going to make a mark because he has not had this kind of political ambition. He has not really, he's just looking to have some fame and to have fun. So the main contenders will be the son of the first president and the son of the first vice president. The historical contest between the Odinga and Kenyatta family manifested now in their elder sons, Uhuru and Raila. And really after this year, we now must move away from this contest between these two dynasties to entrenching democracy in this country and really searching for a meaningful and worthwhile leadership. Because if we do not, the challenges are going to be too great. The unemployment now, certainly in countries like France, you've seen a lot of the upheaval in Europe, the problems with unemployment in South Africa, in Kenya, in Tanzania, in DRC, in Nigeria, against, the dropping world prices, against the New World Order, against Trumpism and Brexit and all of this. These, madam, are going to demand that we have a leadership that is serious, that is mature, that is competent, not a leadership that is joking around, trying to steal and self-enrich while the country sinks. We are moving into a global age where we really, really, really must now get serious about leadership, or else everybody will suffer.
Yeah.
Countries will literally sink. That's exactly my point, is that we have to move beyond that. Because Kenya is a republic. Kenya is a democratic republic that must be able to, on its own accord, search for any leader that can provide solutions, that can provide a vision and a direction outside of political dynasties that sometimes have their own access to grind. And so I think that after 2017, the space will be opening up. Maybe people like Ekuru Aukot have run at maybe the wrong time, have prejudged the timing, because now the space will be opening up, and really somebody who has an agenda for this country will find that there's a constituency willing to listen, because the failures for over 50-something years are going to be too much to bear. And Kenyans will now really be ready to listen to anyone who has an idea, who has a clue, who has a vision, passion and commitment to deliver the country from misrule, from misgovernance, from bad governance.